this Christmas.
Come on, guys, let's do a holiday special.
Yay!
One YouTuber
This is so exciting. We need to find a modern Christmas classic.
will discover the meaning of the word cringe.
Oh God, it's so bad. And there's 3 of them?
One man.
Wait, wasn't she just in labor? How is she standing up talking? That is not how pregnancy works.
One theory.
Why is it still called a Christmas Prince? He's a king now.
One really stupid movie franchise.
No one is even gonna watch this episode. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory. Forget Christmas, today it's all about cringemas. You know, every year I like to do a special holiday episode, something to set the mood for the end of the year. But the problem is, so many of the iconic Christmas mainstays are old. I was really looking for something released this decade. I wanted a modern holiday masterpiece. Instead, I found a Christmas Prince. On the surface, a Christmas Prince looks like your usual schmaltzy, sentimental Christmas Hallmark movie. And that's it? Were you expecting an end to that sentence? Because there isn't one. Christmas Prince sees all the romantic movie cliches and just, you know, does that. Strong, independent American working girl visits a vaguely European kingdom and, through a contrived series of events, ends up marrying the rich, handsome prince.
Pure schmaltz.
It's a movie that your mom would watch. Actually, it's probably a movie that your mom already watched, considering the series has been so successful on Netflix that it's gotten itself 2 sequels. And you can bet that we're talking about the whole canon universe today. Consider it my Christmas gift to you. After all the presents are unwrapped and the holiday meal's done, your family can settle down on the couch to watch it seriously while you watch it ironically. And then after the movie's done, blow everyone's mind with today's theory. Because after watching these 3 films in heavy quotes, I am convinced that the titular Christmas Prince actually sucks. And that the movies low-key know this. In fact, they're hinting at the villain being the right choice for the kingdom the entire time. So step aside, Rise of Skywalker. There's a new must-see trilogy of movies out this holiday season. Nothing brings the family together like a bad movie. Okay, I'm gonna assume that none of you watching have seen these movies since, you know, you're all smart people with better things to do with your time, like watch paint dry. So let me give you the rundown. Amber is an American blogger who gets sent on an assignment to cover the coronation of Prince Richard in the European kingdom of Aldovia. Prince Richard has a reputation for being unreliable and not wanting to take the throne, which could be a big news story.
But if the prince is MIA, then what happens?
That's exactly what you're gonna find out.
In her journalistic journey to get the inside scoop for this hot goss, Amber pretends to be the newly hired tutor for Prince Richard's little sister, Princess Emily.
Yes, that's me, the tutor.
After a rocky start, she learns that the royals aren't such stuck-up people. She, shock of all shocks, manages to fall in love with the handsome, rich, successful prince, and through the power of love/family/Christmas, Prince Richard finally works up the courage to take the throne by being coronated on Christmas Day, despite a last-minute attempt from his evil cousin Count Simon to sabotage the coronation and take the throne for himself. The movie acts like the ending of the story is good, because the handsome, charismatic Richard takes the throne while his conniving cousin Simon is thwarted. But I'm here to tell you that the opposite is true. Richard, our quote-unquote good guy, is actually a terrible ruler, and the kingdom of Aldovia would have been much better off if Simon had been king instead. One of the first hints that we get that Prince Richard might not be cut out for life as a king comes early on in the movie, when he's expected to give closing remarks at a fundraiser to an orphanage.
And today, to continue this tradition, is my beloved son, Prince Richard. Prince Richard?
Oh no.
As we find out, Prince Richard missed giving a speech because he was too busy outside playing with the orphans. It's a moment that our main character Amber finds endearing, because look, he's such a big softie. And on the surface, it seems like it should be a good thing. The prince ignoring the stuck-up rich people to hang out with the needy kids. But the thing is, the entire reason for him giving that speech in the first place was to give the donors a heartfelt message to open their checkbooks and give generously to the orphanage. In fact, getting to see the prince there at that gala is probably why most of them are there in the first place. So when he instead shirks that responsibility to go play with the orphans outside, yeah, it might seem like he's brightening brightening those orphans' day, but in reality, he's leaving them worse off. Sure, orphans love snowball fights, but you know what they love more, Richard? Food, shelter, having the money so the orphanage that houses them doesn't bankrupt. And you see, that's the problem with Richard. He likes the part where he gets to be the smiling, likable, relatable guy who loves riding around on a bicycle and waving to his adoring subjects, but he's terrible at doing the parts of his job that actually provide for the needs of those subjects. We see this in full display in A Christmas Prince 2: The Royal Wedding, where, amidst all the drama of the royal wedding and the merriment of Christmas, Aldovia is suddenly locked in economic turmoil.
I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year.
In the single year after Richard takes the throne to become the king, the country suddenly plummets into bankruptcy. Aldovian companies are shutting down and people are quickly losing their jobs.
I was a foreman for Derryville Concrete for 25 years before we were shut down.
I've lost my job as the company I worked for my whole life was put out of business by your new Aldovia disaster.
Not only that, but government workers have been unpaid, which is causing union workers to go on strike.
The unions are calling for a nationwide strike in solidarity over unpaid wages on our work programs.
Aw, geez, it sure does suck when your kingdom's subjects ruin the mood of the holidays by complaining about how their livelihoods have been destroyed by your failed economic program, doesn't it? At least you would think that. You would think that this whole nation and economic collapse situation would put a real damper on the festive holiday spirit for the royal family, but no, Richard and his bride-to-be find plenty of time for Christmas romance.
Now let's go and find the most perfect Christmas tree that the palace courtyard has ever seen.
The only trouble in their life is that the nationwide strike means that Richard's sister, little Princess Emily, can't be in her Christmas play.
Why did the lights go off? Why is everybody leaving?
The theatre workers have gone on strike in solidarity.
She would have been a brilliant Princess Froon, Emily.
You make a brilliant ogre, Tom.
Thanks.
Luckily, our queen-to-be Amber has a solution to the strike. Just order the palace staff to put on the play.
You moved my play to the palace. How did you do this?
Wow! It's a Christmas miracle, all made possible through the magic of scab labor. Even the threat of impending war barely gets Richard to act. In the third film, A Christmas Prince, The Royal Baby, Richard's Kingdom of Aldovia must re-ratify a 600-year-old treaty in order to remain at peace with their neighboring country, Penglia. If they miss the deadline to sign the treaty, the two nations suddenly return to a state of war.
If it's not renewed by midnight on Christmas Eve, Aldovia and Penglia technically return to a state of war.
That one might merit a bit more than the usual Google Calendar reminder 10 minutes before the meeting. Hey guys, you ever consider coming up with a treaty that, I don't know, doesn't expire every 100 years? When it comes to preventing war, you might want to opt for the auto-renewal option. So of course, the treaty goes missing with just hours to go. You would think then that the impending war would be cause for massive concern from our Christmas King Richard and his newly coronated Queen Amber. So let's check in on him.
I don't need to focus on this missing treaty.
No, you absolutely don't.
Apparently, the only thing that gets Amber to care about this isn't the impending war, but rather a vague curse that might be put on her unborn child should the treaty not get signed.
I'm not meant to tell you this because it's probably rubbish, but a curse will befall on the king and queen responsible for breaking the treaty.
Seriously? A curse?
No, not at all concerned about a war, but a curse that someone tells you is rubbish does in a movie franchise where there is nothing supernatural whatsoever. Maybe you didn't hear us the first time.
The chance of this being real is infinitesimal.
I don't care if it's 1 in a billion. I'm not risking it. We need to find this treaty.
Oh, you did hear us. You just chose to ignore basic reason. Cool. And where's King Richard in all this?
I promised I'd build the crib on my own, but I found the instructions impenetrable.
Not only is the man unconcerned about the impending war on his doorstep, he apparently can't even put together freaking IKEA furniture. But now let's turn our focus to Richard's cousin Simon, the villain of the first movie. Compared to Prince Richard, Count Simon is not as charismatic. He's not as handsome. He's not as beloved by the people. But you know what he is? He's an economics major.
I have a degree in economics from Oxford.
You do?
He's a peacemaker.
Lynn and I have been working diligently on economic amendments to the treaty, which should benefit both kingdoms.
And he's someone who actually wants to be the king. Not only does he have the desire to take the throne, unlike Richard in that first movie, he also, technically speaking, is the rightful person to sit on that throne. You see, midway through the first movie, it's revealed that Prince Richard was actually adopted. Not even the prince himself was aware that he was adopted. Amber finds the adoption paperwork hidden in a drawer.
I've got his birth certificate, a fake certificate the royals created, and the freaking adoption papers?
You've got a legit Aldovian birther scandal on your hands.
According to Aldovian law, as an adopted child, Richard is not part of the royal bloodline, thereby making Simon next in line to take the throne. Until, of course, they find an old royal decree hidden somewhere inside a Christmas ornament by the former king saying Richard is next for the throne. I mean, that alone should tell you how stupid this country is. Secret decrees written and stored inside Christmas ornaments is no basis for a system of government. But let's look at the actions of the villainous Simon, shall we? In the third movie, with war on the horizon and Richard struggling to assemble his sniglar, you know who did make caring about the whole peace treaty a priority? Simon, who is working with the Penglian royal family's attaché to make improvements to the treaty.
Lynn and I have been working diligently on economic amendments to the treaty which should benefit both kingdoms.
And we've found a very promising solution.
Improvements that, you know, end up getting overlooked and ignored by Richard at the end of the movie. How about in that second movie with the country on the verge of complete bankruptcy?
I may have a solution to Aldovia's financial crisis by investing just a fraction of what you've sunk into
I
this.
should have known this was about getting your hands on the kingdom's money.
Richard, cousin, no.
Well, wouldn't you know it, Simon is there again, ready to help.
It's just as I say, I want to help.
Listen, Richard, maybe you don't want to put him in charge, but all I'm asking you is that you hear him out. Maybe he has a sound plan.
All I'm asking is that you hear me out. I have a sound plan. Give me a chance to redeem myself.
Nope. Instead, Richard ignores Simon, instead taking the advice of Lord Leopold, a friend of the royal family.
Ignore my cousin, Lord Leopold.
A guy who, at the end of the movie, is revealed to be the one in charge of a massive shell corporation scheme. In short, this guy is revealed to be the mastermind causing the economic disaster in Aldovia. Whoopsie! Turns out Richard isn't just a bad ruler, he's also a bad judge of character. Which leads us all the way back around to the first movie. The one that labels Simon as the villain, and the one that establishes our heroine Amber as our eventual queen-to-be. But again, let's look beyond what the movie tells us to think, and instead objectively look at what these characters do. So, one of the first quote-unquote villainous things that Simon does is search the room of Amber, where he uncovers the hidden adoption papers proving that Richard should not be the king. Yes, it's sneaky, yes, it's backhanded, and yes, it's an invasion of privacy. But then again, Amber did all the exact same things as Simon, if not worse. She can't really claim to be the wronged party here because remember, this whole story begins because she committed fraud. She lied and became the princess's tutor with the sole intent of infiltrating the palace and getting a juicy story to report on. It's just really lucky for these guys that she turned out to be a gossip blogger and not like an assassin or international spy. Probably should consider beefing up security around here, guys.
I've been saying that we should update the security protocols ever since, well, you infiltrated the palace.
Because of these lies, she spends days getting close to the royal family, getting intimate with the king-to-be, all under false pretenses. Oh, and what about Simon finding those papers in her room? What a meanie, am I right? Wrong! Amber got those papers while snooping around the king's personal possessions, where she then finds the birth certificate and adoption papers, which she then proceeds to hide inside her own belongings. So, remind me again whose privacy is really being invaded here? Like, when Amber steals the adoption papers from the king's study, we're supposed to be okay with it because she's the main character. But when Simon suddenly takes back the documents that she stole so he can give them back to the royal family, somehow he's suddenly our villain? He's in the wrong? Double standards, my friends. And what does Simon choose to do with this new information? Well, he brings it before Aldovia's parliament to expose the truth. He doesn't try to extort anyone or make any sort of backhanded deals, unlike the queen and the late king who tried to cover up Richard's true origins in order to prevent a scandal in the country. Simon takes legitimate legal documents and presents them to a legitimate legal entity, the government, because he thinks that the public deserves to know, unlike Amber, apparently.
And you can't mention it either.
What are you gonna do?
I don't know yet. This is somebody's life we're talking about.
I'm sorry, Amber. Aren't you the one aspiring to be a professional journalist?
How else am I supposed to become a real journalist?
Not like this, Amber. Not by breaking and entering to find legal documents calling the legitimacy of the head of state into question and then helping to cover it all up just because you have a crush on him. Luckily, Simon is there to do Amber's job for her. He announces that he's found documents and presents them for anyone to see and inspect.
This documentation states that Prince Richard is in fact adopted.
So across these three movies, not only did Simon try to fix an outdated war treaty, try to fix his country's economy, and also manage to uncover a plot by an American journalist to infiltrate the royal palace, but he also uncovered a conspiracy by the late king dating back decades. Sure, it's rather convenient for Simon that unearthing this sort of information will result in him being king, but remember, Richard didn't even want the job in the first movie. Simon was practically doing him a favor, handing Richard an Uno skip card. Skip Richard as king and go to someone who actually wants the job. And let's face it, the truth is that Simon is just more qualified here, unlike Richard, who after ascending to the throne puts the country into economic crisis and almost pushes it to the brink of war. And what does Simon get for his troubles? Well, he's now branded as the bad guy. He's embarrassed in the face of the country, his wife leaves him, and he's destitute.
I lost almost everything I had to Sophia in the divorce.
What happened to the Lamborghini?
Ferrari, don't ask.
So the handsome, dumb one wins the girl and the throne and the adoration of the people, while the smart, ambitious one gets ostracized, bankrupted, and pushed aside for repeatedly trying to help the citizens of his country. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.